Religion was always meant to be a blessing from God. It is the greatest thing that a person can do in life. The quest to find the answer to the nature of reality and the self. The meaning of existence. And what is life as a whole. And it is true what they say. The truth will set you free. Through the belief in the afterlife, and furthermore, the belief in reincarnation, and living many lives, a person sees a grander picture, which makes his current existence seem much smaller. Thus all his problems also become smaller. And the everyday struggles in the material world start to lose their grip on the emotional and mental state. By contemplation on the vastness of the universe and the infinity of lives that you live, you find detachment and disassociation and peace. Once this state of peace is achieved, one can shift his focus from trivial material experiences that constantly come and go and are quickly forgotten, and a focus can be established on the ultimate quest of realization of the nature of God and the universe. This detachment from the material world and a focus on higher things makes a person stronger and able to resist temptation of sin. This in turn creates a harmonious society of caring people who, instead of striving to compete against each other and benefit from the loss of others, can work together with brotherly love towards each other and can build civilization. Religion has played a major role throughout history in taking man out of his primal barbaric state and leading him towards the building and shaping of civilization. This, however, has not always been the case. Since ancient times, there have been evil forces at work. People lost in maniacal ideas of supreme power, rulership, and the building of empires. Empires built upon the corpses of the innocent. Even though, in our modern times, you would surely be in great difficulty to find a person who has not heard of the historic figure of Jesus Christ, there are actually very few who fully understand and are familiar with the true teachings of Yeshua. That is partially because a very significant part of his teachings never made it into the Bible. But we can find some of it in the Nag Hammadi library. Also known as the Gnostic Gospels, they are 13 leather-bound papyrus codices buried in a sealed jar, discovered near the Upper Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi in 1945. By the time of Emperor Constantine's deathbed conversion, when Christianity became an officially approved religion in the 4th century, Christian bishops, previously victimized by the police, now commanded them. Possession of books denounced as heretical was made a criminal offense. Copies of such books were burned and destroyed. But in Upper Egypt, someone, possibly a monk, from a nearby monastery of St. Pachomius, took the banned books and hid them from destruction in the jar, where they remained buried for almost 1,600 years. The Nag Hammadi texts are early Christian writings, which allow us to see the original Christianity before it was affected by Rome. Here are some of the statements which Yeshua made in these texts. From the Gospel of Thomas: "Whoever finds the meaning of these words will not taste death. The kingdom is inside you and outside you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will realize that you are the children of the living Father. The dead are not alive, and the living will not die." Congratulations to the one who came into being before coming into being. If the flesh came into being because of the Spirit, it is a wonder. But if the Spirit came into being because of the body, it is a wonder of wonders. Damn the flesh, that depends on the soul. Damn the soul, that depends on the flesh. Those who know all, but are lacking in themselves, are utterly lacking. Those who have found themselves, of them, the world is not worthy. From this we see that the true interest of Yeshua is the nature of reality, the world, and the self. The ascension into God. Something which is universal and the center of all religions. To know yourself is to understand the nature of the living one. Not the body, not the mind, but him, who is the one having the experience of the body and the mind. He who contains the experience of the material existence in the senses. If one is whole, one will be filled with light, but if one is divided, one will be filled with darkness. The indivisible, non-material soul that is beyond space and time, that holds space and time, and all its division, as illusory concepts, in the consciousness. The birthless, unchanging experiencer that can never die. We have come from the light, from the place where the light came into being, by itself, established itself, and appeared in their image. The self-born, self-created, causeless, cause of all. And to see him, the living one, who is yourself, in everyone. And to see the world, as made of dead matter. As an irrelevant illusion. As a temporary, ever-changing dream. Whoever has come to know the world, has discovered a dead carcass, and whoever has discovered a dead carcass, of that one, the world, is not worthy. To understand these sayings, is to understand the nature of the living God, and the meaning of existence. The body dies, and the mind stops. But he who sees himself as the living soul, and awakens from the illusion of a limited existence into the supreme unlimited state, cannot die. If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not have that within you, what you do not have within you will kill you. Abstaining from the world takes away its control over you. And this becomes the death of death. When you make the two into one, you will become children of Adam. And when you say, mountain, move from here, it will move. All this is actually common Hindu philosophy, found in many of the ancient Indian books. There are many stories of ancient Hindu holy rishis that have transcended the material illusion and the cycle of reincarnation, and through that have gained the ability to bend the laws of nature and perform miracles like Christ. Another commonality is the monastic practices and restriction of sense gratification, like fasting, for example. However, it should be noted that one major difference remains, and that is the virgin birth, which the rishis do not claim. Here are a few short excerpts of the same teaching, presented in the Bhagavata Purana, an ancient Hindu book that portrays events that go back hundreds of thousands of years. The Supreme Lord said, "I shall now describe to you the different categories of reality, knowing which anyone can be released from the bond of the sleep, wake, and dream modes of material nature. I shall explain that to you, about which one speaks as the spiritual knowledge that cuts the knots of egoism in the heart and constitutes the ultimate purpose of one's self-realization. The Supreme Soul, the original person, elevated above matter, is beginningless and free from the basic qualities of nature. He constitutes the inner, self-radiant refuge of the entire creation he maintains. That very person, the greatest of the great, accepted out of his own free will, for his enjoyment, the divine subtle material energy, characterized by the three modes. By these modes, nature created the varying forms of the living entities. The living beings, seeing them, were, from the first day on in this world, illusioned by them, because these forms constitute the covering of their spiritual knowledge. Because the living entity identifies himself with the operation of material nature, he attributes the activities performed by those basic qualities to himself. Thus being bound to a conditioned life, the naturally joyful, independent witness, who does not do anything, became dependent. Knowers of truth state that the body and the senses one is engaged with are subject to the operation of the basic qualities of material nature, and that the spirit soul, above all matter, is responsible for the experience of happiness and distress therewith. The Supreme Lord said, "One will realize the freedom when one, with a clean mind, serious unto me, and faithfully listening to my stories, in devotional service, manages to perform one's duties, without desiring the fruits thereof. By means of spiritual knowledge, with the vision of the absolute truth, in yoga, strongly connected in penance, detached, and firmly fixed, someone becomes absorbed in the soul. Someone devoted to me, who are under my protection, for the sake of awakening his intelligence, by my unlimited mercy, goes for the ultimate goal of his existence, enlightenment and emancipation, will in this life soon attain a steady self-awareness and be free from doubt. The yogi, who departed for that heavenly abode will, after leaving behind both the subtle and the gross body, never return. When the attention of the perfected yogi is not drawn towards yogic powers to control the material illusion, then, having no other purpose in his life, his progress towards me will be unbounded, because the power of death is lost therein. There are thousands of explanations like this in books like the Vishnu Purana, the Upanishads, and many others. There is only one religion. God made it, and people divided it. However, these things never really made it into the final version of the Roman Christianity. They have been forgotten for 2,000 years. Rome was never really interested in the truth about the nature of reality. They did not legalize Christianity because they believed in Yeshua and his teachings. They were a vast empire spanning many cultures: Greek, Carthaginian, Iberian, Gallic, Celtic, British, Germanic, Thracian, Arabic, Jewish, and Egyptian. Struggling to keep everyone in check and paying their taxes. The teachings of Yeshua and the stories of his miracles had spread throughout the land, amongst the different races of people. Rome saw this as an opportunity to use Christianity as a method of unification of the diverse communities that it rules over. So, they replaced their original Roman paganism, which was disliked by all surrounding peoples, with this new religion. And they created the Papacy as a means of ruling over the believers. And they started to spread Christianity to attract others under their influence. This was their sinister plot to use God's works for their own benefit, for power and for empire. But, as they plotted, God also plotted. And he used Rome's greed and lust and influence. And through them, he spread the story of Yeshua far beyond the lands of Judea. In the early days of Roman Christianity, many people throughout the empire could not read. And, in most places, the Bible only existed in Latin, which was a foreign language to most. Thus, the multitudes were deprived of the true knowledge and wisdom. The papacy was the only path to religion, and the Pope became like God on earth, having complete power over the beliefs of people. In this, he became like many other ancient Antichrist figures, like Antiochus Epiphanes, king of the Seleucid Empire, or the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten, who self-proclaimed their divinity and forced their servants to worship them. God's reaction to Rome's subversion of the faith did not take long. During the 7th century, the Holy Spirit descended upon the Prophet Muhammad, and through him, the world was blessed with the Holy Quran. And Islam quickly became a protector of truth and a strong opposition to Catholicism, which had rotted from the inside. God blessed the Arabs, and while Europe was wallowing in mud and plagues, the East prospered in science, culture, and an unshakable devotion to God. Many sciences, like astronomy, geography, mathematics, geometry, and Arabic numerals, the knowledge of medicinal plants and chemical compounds, optics and mechanics were advanced by the Arabs in this period. The papacy no longer had a monopoly on religion, and their puppeteering of the believers of the West was threatened. They created the propaganda that Islam is a message that is separate from the Bible and even opposite to it. Possibly even a lie from Satan. Even though it is obvious for anyone who objectively reads the Holy Quran that it is a continuation and a clarification. This myth grips the Christian world to this very day. And Christians believe this, even though, on the holiest place on earth, the hill in Jerusalem, a place historically reserved for the house of God, stands an Islamic shrine. And it has stood there for 1,329 years. And God does not seem displeased by that at all. The Lord made a covenant with Abraham that he will be his God and the God of all his descendants. His descendants were Isaac and Ishmael. From Isaac came the Jews, and from Ishmael the Arabs. And God gave the land to both of them. In Islam, it is forbidden to make an image of God. That is simply because God transcends all that is experienced. So, nothing that can be seen within the senses can ever be worthy of representing his infinite, metaphysical nature. The dead finite creation is not worthy of the living creator. It is the same in Hinduism. Even though there are thousands of gods, in its original ancient teaching, they are all considered manifestations of one living God. All the Hindu gods are avatars of Vishnu. There are three main avatars. Vishnu himself, on the snake bed Ananta, ruler over all. Brahman, who is the first created. The conscious mind of God, that contains all minds, who has awakened into existence from the nothingness that is before the creation of time itself. And Shiva, the destroyer, who is the physical avatar of Rudra. The force that purifies all physical imperfections. Only the one living God is worshipped, and everything else, animate and inanimate, is seen as a manifestation of him, and a dream which he creates within himself. Islam was spreading in the Middle East and creating a multicultural empire, as the Quran states, of the brotherhood of believers, including all religions, and practicing tolerance towards the Jews and the Christians, who were referred to with respect as the people of the book. In the meantime, the papacy created the holy war against Islam. In an attempt to regain full unchallenged power and monopoly over religion. During the 12th century, in Christian Europe, appeared an organization which we today know as the Knights Templar, also known as the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. They were so poor that two of them had to ride on one horse. Or at least, that's what they wanted people to think of them. In reality, 90% of their members were non-combatants who managed a large economic infrastructure throughout Christendom, developing innovative financial techniques that were an early form of banking. This organization of knights/bankers was in fact a group of well-armed swords for hire. They were mercenaries who killed for the highest bidder. No different than the private military contractors of today. An organization which the government hires to do their dirty work, which the official military couldn't do because it often involves war crimes. This medieval organization of private military contractors/bankers were hired by the monarchs of Europe to undertake crusades in the lands of the Arabs. Of course, the whole thing was done under a cloak of righteousness and supposedly in service of the cause of Christ. Even though Christ said, "Love thy enemy." In reality, it was simply a raid operation in which they entered the Eastern civilization that lived in peace, and like simple barbarians, stole everything that was of value. The Gesta Francorum, a Latin chronicle of the First Crusade, written in the 12th century, talks about the opportunity for plunder and great booty as a motivating force. During the Second Crusade, in 1147, the Crusaders agreed to help King Afonso I of Portugal to attack Lisbon, which was held by the Moors, with a solemn agreement that offered to them the pillage of the city's goods and the ransom money for expected prisoners. During the Fourth Crusade, in 1203, because of commercial rivalry between the Republic of Venice and the Byzantine Empire, the Crusaders, on their way to the Holy Land, conquered and sacked Constantinople. It was said that the total amount looted from Constantinople was about 900,000 silver marks. The Venetians received 200,000 silver marks, while the Crusaders officially received 100,000. The remaining silver marks were secretly kept back by many Crusaders. In his own letters, Pope Innocent III, the man who launched the expedition, critically says about the sacking of Constantinople: "Not satisfied with breaking open the imperial treasury and plundering the goods of princes and lesser men, they also laid their hands on the treasures of the churches, and what is more serious, on their very possessions. They have even ripped silver plates from the altars, and have hacked them to pieces among themselves. They violated the holy places, and have carried off crosses and relics." Nevertheless, the Pope accepted the new situation when the Crusaders took some of the piles of money, jewels, and gold that they had captured back to Rome. Innocent III accepted the stolen items. As always, money and greed was the driving force. The Crusades led to a descent in relations between Islam and Christianity, creating hatred and aggression by both sides. But as it often happens, in the times when the wicked are at the peak of their conquest for riches and power, judgment came for them. The French king, Philip IV, was in great debt to the Templars. and decided that he doesn't necessarily need to pay their wages. Seizing the moment when criminal charges were being made against the Templars, the French king issued an order for the simultaneous arrest of all their members and the execution of their leader, Jacques de Molay. This happened on Friday the 13th of October 1307. However, many of the members of the Knights Order managed to escape the arrests. They left France and fled in two distinct locations. One was the Kingdom of Scotland. It was closely allied with the French via the Auld Alliance, signed in 1295, with the aim of controlling the English invasions. It was an excellent place where the Templars could continue their operations. There they formed what we today know as Scottish Rite Freemasonry, an organization which, just like the Templars, is today cloaked with a set of morals and supposed righteousness, but in actuality is just a substitute for Christianity. Freemasons meet in so-called temples, but their temples are not gods. The second place where the Templars fled was in the mountainous region of the Alps. There they paid off the locals and turned them into their personal bodyguards. This was the birth of the old Swiss Confederacy, a confederation of small states within the Holy Roman Empire. It was the precursor of the modern state of Switzerland. The tight passages of the Alps were blocked by the wall of spears of the Swiss pikemen, and even the heavy cavalry of France could not prevail. Many years later, the true knowledge of the Swiss overlords was forgotten, and legends were whispered about mysterious shining knights that came to the rescue when the Swiss were about to lose a battle. Since then, Switzerland has always been used as a safe haven for the elite and monarchs of Europe, for banking, money laundering and tax frauds, and all other kinds of illegal activities that the very rich participate in. The papacy's greed went so far that during the 16th century, Pope Leo X sold official documents which would forgive a person's sins and allow passage into heaven. Something which we know only God can do. In those days rose a great hero named Martin Luther, a German professor of theology and an Augustinian monk. He, and others with him, like William Tyndale, translated the Bible into German and English, and thus made it available to all people. The Pope no longer had a monopoly on Christianity. This was the start of the Protestant Revolution. One of the miraculous things about the Bible is that some of the prophecies in it simultaneously point to two or more separate events which resemble each other in a symbolic way and are like a repeating echo through history. One such prophecy is Revelation 17 and 18. It is a prophecy for the end times, and thus its fulfillment lies in the future. But it simultaneously points to the past. The prophecy talks about mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. She is described both as a woman and as a city full of sin, which God destroys in his wrath. The woman is said to be arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. She sits upon a beast, and the beast has 7 heads. Later on, it is described that the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Rome is known as the city on 7 hills, and the colors of the Vatican clergy are purple and scarlet. This was the interpretation that the Protestants wrote in the footnotes of the Geneva Bible from 1599. This was their proof that the papacy is an evil force. Protestants opposed to the manipulation and rule of the papacy began to spring up all throughout England and Germany. The English, at the time, were not in very good relations with the Catholic nations of Europe. In 1532, under pressure from the Protestant movement and other political and financial benefits, Henry VIII divorced England from the papacy with the start of official Protestant reformations. This act of the English, standing on the side of God's word, pleased the Lord, and his blessing soon followed. The gift that God gave England was the conquest over the Americas, and also all her other colonies, like Australia and New Zealand. The British Empire spanned the globe, and became so great that the sun did not set on her. The papacy's response to the rise of Protestantism was a new Inquisition, and 2 major military conflicts were instigated. The French Wars of Religion, 1562 to 1598, in which the Catholics fought the French Protestants. 3 million people were killed. The second military conflict was the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648. It was a war between the Protestant and Catholic states in the Holy Roman Empire. It resulted in the deaths of over 8 million people, including 20% of the German population. In 1605, the papacy attempted the assassination of England's King James I in the Jesuits' so-called gunpowder treason plot, in which they tried to blow up the House of Lords and replace the government with one that is Catholic. The operation was done through a group of English Catholics led by Robert Catesby. Among his fellow plotters was Guy Fawkes. They failed and were captured and executed. This was a brief history of how the powers of evil have manipulated religion and used it for their own interests of control and empire. Such things, unfortunately, are not restricted to history. The same things continue to go on today. As we discussed in the previous film, most of modern-day Christian communities in America consider Gog, from the land of Magog, to be Russia.
Directions are given in relation to Israel, and if you look to the extreme north of Israel today, you'll find the mighty nation of Russia.
Referring to Tobolsk, and Meshach referring to probably Moscow. They're all friends with Russia.
Remember, Russia has always wanted a warm water port, but they haven't been able to come down towards the Mediterranean.
America has been gripped by this fear since the Cold War, and by this prophecy the American churches have unwillingly become active political participants in the information war against Russia. This interpretation of the prophecy comes from an association originating from the term Prince of Rosh. Rosh is claimed to be the old root word for Russia. But where exactly does this term, Prince of Rosh, come from? The answer, unsurprisingly, is that it comes from the Bible. Son of man, set your face toward Gog, the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. This is the prophecy by Ezekiel. Lowever, this is not from just any Bible. This is the New American Standard Bible, translated by F. Dewey Lockman and published in 1971. In the midst of the Cold War against Russia. But is there a difference in this translation when compared to the King James Version of the Bible from 1611, which is considered the most accurate and original version we have today? Ezekiel 38:2. In King James Version. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. So, instead of the New American Standard Bible's Prince of Rosh, what we have in the King James Version is the words chief prince. But why does this difference exist? A little article in Wikipedia states, most scholars see this as a mistranslation of Nesi Rosh, chief prince, rather than a toponym. What this means is that the word Rosh is not a name, but a very common Hebrew word. According to the dictionary, it means head, chief, or chief of. Like, for example, everybody has heard of the Jewish New Year. It is called Rosh Hashanah. This literally translates to head of the year. So, when the word Rosh is translated, what we get is exactly what is written in the King James Version. Chief Prince of Meshech and Tubal. So, there is actually no such character as Rosh. It's just an untranslated Hebrew word. This mistake conveniently created the association of Rosh with Russia and gripped America with the fear that Russia will invade Israel, turning the American churches into anti-Russian propaganda machines. All this exactly in the midst of the Cold War. Was all this really a coincidence? Or is it yet another sinister plot by the US Central Intelligence Agency to manipulate religion for the benefit of empire? You decide.